Beautiful tune right there from Laudable Home. Yeah, nice name for a nice gentleman for a nice song. Right, now it's about time that we go into that combo again. Not dealing with same things, but getting deeper into it. If you've been following, we've been talking about learning disabilities and we've been talking about dyslexia. We've had people in the studio telling us how difficult it is to actually, flow with other students who probably they term as regular students. And the good side of it is that at the end of the day, these children who probably were challenged with these things turn out to be very great men and women in society. And so we still want to delve deeper into tackling learning difficulties among students. And here in studio, I have Michelle, right, Sakande. She is an inclusion specialist, writer, well-being advocate. And then for the second time, Fati Abubakar Sadiq. She's also an inclusion specialist and dyslexia advocate from the UAE. And joining us via Zoom, we have Dr. Martin Bloomfield. He's a founding director, Beyond Inclusion Limited in the UK. Good morning, sir. Yeah, we're going to have to work on that sound real quick. But yeah, ladies, real quick. So this is my first time of meeting you. Oh my God, I think you're really pretty. Yeah. So we started to talk about some of the things, the challenges that the children, go through. Fact that we're talking about regular learning stuff. A is B, A and this, N and that. 1 + 2 is 3. But for them, it has to go through a longer process. And I love the explanation you gave the last time. It's about the learning shelf, right? So you put one thing there, and then when the moment you start to stuff the shelf, other ones fall off, and so they're unable to fully grasp. But then it means that these people need time, they need a lot of patience. And I love the fact that we also touched on how much this means to caregivers and parents and all of that. It's not that not all your children are the same, okay? So yeah, and all of that, but all of them are great people, right? So real quick, Fatih, based on the discussion that we had the last time, okay, and I know that there's a conference coming up and all of the stakeholders are going to come, but real fast, right? What are some of the interventions that we sort of have overlooked or, underutilized as caregivers, as school people, as parents, and all of that?
So for me, if I'm just to give a quick one, I believe in something we call compassionate inclusion.
Compassionate inclusion. Tell me about it.
Where children feel seen, they feel supported, and the main thing is they feel respected and valued, which sometimes I think in our efforts to support the kids, we lose the respect. Like we talk to them anyhow, we label them as lazy, not trying harder. But once we come from a point of compassion, try to empathize with the process, they're saying that children will do better if they can. But we have this assumption that, the child is just lazy, he just doesn't want to. So for me, I think that's the main intervention, that if we go with that mindset, we'll be able to then implement all the other strategies in the classroom, at home. So teachers, everybody just approaches from a point of being compassionate, and then everything else would follow.
So compassionate inclusion, yes. Where the heart of the children are being probably considered, right? Okay. So you respect them as full human beings.
And they feel seen.
Human. They feel seen, they feel respected. I feel you want to say something about it.
I always say that it should be connection before correction.
Yes.
Great.
I think that sometimes there's always a focus on correcting the child or kind of trying to make them better. But actually, before we do anything, emotional safety is the foundation for all learning. Once a child feels, as Fatih said, safe, respected, like they belong, then they can flourish.
Right.
I think everyone remembers a teacher that really made
really
a
good to
profound
them.
impact on them. And it's always about the connection, the relationships that developed beforehand.
Right.
And then the learning can happen. And just taking the extra time and care for every student and every learner, because we're all different, as you said, and we all learn in different ways.
And
Right.
just to add to what Michelle said, I remember when I was starting into my professional training,
Yeah.
something that one of my mentors told me was, children will care if they know you care.
Yeah, exactly.
So sometimes we have students in your class, they're misbehaving, but we all know that there's that one teacher, when you go into their class, you want to give them the best impression of yourself. So if the kid knows that you care, they would make the effort, because children like to impress the adults in their lives. So if children know that you care, they would care about what you're teaching them, and that's when learning can come in, the connection, as Michelle said.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Like what you invest is what you get.
Yes.
What you order versus what you get. Right. Dr. Martin is Dr. Martin is his audio fixed now?
I hope so.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, it is. It's fixed. Quickly, I wanted to know, I mean, you're in the UK. I'm thinking that you've had, contact with many people from different cultures, different homes, different ideologies, and all of that. How has the diversity of culture affected inclusion in your perspective?
It's got a huge effect on what even we understand inclusion means. And this is one of the interesting things. People from different cultures hear the word inclusion, and it means different things to different people. So for some people, it may be having them in a classroom. For some people, it may be putting them at the forefront of the classroom. For other people, it may be acceptance. For other people, it may be some form of family, some form of brotherhood or sisterhood. So the idea of inclusion, it's really interesting. We have these cultures, and not getting too boring. On the first layer of our culture, we have what we call our artifacts and our behaviors. So essentially in a school, it's like the school classroom, it's the 45-minute lessons, it's the bells at the end of classroom, it's the teacher at the front and the kids sitting in rows. These are the artifacts and the behaviors of a culture. Beneath that, these artifacts and behaviors are based on what we call the values of a culture. Now, inclusion might be one of the values of a culture, and often it is. But underneath that, these values are based on what we call unspoken norms and assumptions. And different cultures have different unspoken norms and assumptions. They come historically. So people who come from a culture that's gone through, let's say, a Ghanaian history will have one form of unspoken norms. People from, let's say, a Finnish or a Swedish history will have a different set of norms and assumptions. So the very notion of inclusion differs from culture to culture.
Right. That's fantastic. Unspoken norms. And I'm also thinking about it like, is it because some parents feel like, okay, my child is going out there, they're going to be meeting with different children, and I'm expecting that my child is treated a certain way, and the teacher might not be able to give them that. They become too protective, and then they take the child out of that environment that would cause some sort of, bottleneck in their learning. Do you have situations like that? Are you ever challenged with such a thing, Dr. Martin?
We have many. And so what we'll find out is that in some cultures, for instance, in the Finnish culture, it's not even an issue because their education system is a very inclusive education system. But in some other cultures, I mean, let's just take the idea of dyslexia. We know that in certain cultures and certain, as it were, subcultures, dyslexia is looked upon as a form of witchcraft abuse. Now we know this, and we know that the consequences of this, and we know that the child abuse that can happen from this. We know that in other cultures it's simply swept under the table and not spoken about. We know that there's one culture, for instance, in the east of Asia, where the education system is so strict and so rigid and so what you would call linear, the opposite of what your other guests were talking about, in fact, that there's one final exam at the end of every year, and there's a bridge in the capital city, and on that bridge there are pictures of teddy bears to stop kids throwing themselves off the bridge because the stresses of the exams are too much. Wow. And this is exactly where, if you like, this is where the compassionate inclusion comes in. It's where the idea of not talking about about dyslexic kids or kids with specific learning differences as broken comes in. Because we know that if we even think of them as broken, we treat them as broken. And when we treat them as broken, the results go down.
Wow, this is really big. So we started to touch on the children and all of that, but there's always an underlying cultural thing, right? Did you ever go through that? You're a writer. How do you channel that through what you write?
Speaking of my writing, Buck Press is publishing a children's book that I've just written, and it is called Jude the Giant. But the main idea around the book is so that everyone feels seen. It's an inclusive story, and I was very intentional about the illustrations and wanted every sort of person to be represented. You know, we speak about, you mentioned that parents maybe want their children to be treated a certain way, and maybe that's the norm, whatever the norm is. And often, you know, we are just all different. And I think there needs to be an acceptance of the differences, if that makes sense, before we can kind of adapt and give everybody what they need. You have to accept that we are all different and not try to make everyone kind of go the linear path or follow the strict line. So in this book that I've written, it's got rich illustrations that kind of represent everyone. There's everybody in there. There's a girl with a hijab. There is a child in a wheelchair. There is every single person is represented. And I think it's important that we see all of the differences, even the invisible differences, because the story is about a child that has an invisible learning difference, one that isn't, you know, obvious visibly. And so I think that is an important way that children should kind of see those images and understand that from a very, very young age. It's a children's book.
Right. Yeah. Right. What's the title again?
Jude the Giant.
Jude the Giant.
I'll be exhibiting it at the conference. The Africa Dyslexia Organization.
Okay, nice. Then we're all going to be there. But something really struck me. We've been talking about caregivers, you know, I mean, we're about talking policies and all of that because at the conference, the education minister is going to be there. And that's a wider, you know, stage where we can talk about all of these things. But take me through how children in regular classes relate to these other children and how we can probably tune their minds to know that this child is not any different from you, right? How do we get these children to start to understand these differences in life, even before reading Jude the Giant?
I think it starts with the adults. Because if the adults keeps calling that kid, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're this, and then everybody just laughs, how do you expect the kids in the class to then respect that child? So it comes to the social. So socially, these kids feel isolated because who wants to be friends with the dumb kid? Of course, no one would want to be. So I think if the adults change the language they use, then we get because one of the things is, for kids with learning difficulties within the classroom, the good support is their peers. When you get their peers to support them, it empowers them. So if we reframe our language to make it more positive, then kids around would emulate, and then the culture within the classroom brings back to the compassion. Develop the compassion, emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, all that within the kids. And then naturally, kids would develop because kids model from their environment. So you don't expect the teachers to be using negative language and expect positive language from the kids. That's not going to happen, right? So I think it starts with the adults and then reframing the language. For me, it's the language about because within the Ghanaian context, we've all seen that it's, as Dr. Martin said, associated with witchcrafts, we take the kids to prayer camps to pray the difficulty out of them, which never happens. So it's a lot of, for me now, it's more about changing the mindset. Once we change the mindset, acceptance, then we'll be able to then talk about the strategies, talk about what's working, what's not working. But if we're still taking the kids to the camp for prayers,
it's going to take some time.
We have a long way, so yeah.
Dr. Martins, have you had any, working relation with some governments of some countries, and how long did it take for such, officers to fully grasp this, to actually inculcate it in the educational system and all of that? I mean, I'm asking because of the conversation we're about to have with the minister, so that we know what we're in for, right?
So Fatty and Michelle have made some extremely good points, and these are very powerful points. What we tend to see is that there's always, even if it's a minority, it's a strong minority within most governments who recognize the issues and want to do something about it. Let's give an example of the United Kingdom very quickly. A couple of years ago, I was quite heavily involved in the dyslexia bill that went through the British Parliament. Now, one of the interesting things about the dyslexia bill is that the idea was that we'd have universal screening for dyslexia, we'd have appropriate teacher training for dyslexia. Almost everybody in the world knows that this is a good idea. Certainly everybody in Britain knows it's a good idea. The problem with it is, it wasn't a government policy. It was introduced by a member of parliament called Matt Hancock, who was the former health secretary. And he and his colleagues tried to push it through Parliament.
All right.
But it was what they called a private member's bill. Now, this was therefore, it was pushed through by a single politician and his colleagues. Private members' bills take a long time to go through Parliament. By the final stage, there was a couple of different private members' bills that had to be dealt with on the final day of Parliament, and other private members' bills were deemed more important than this one. And so the question isn't necessarily do governments and do politicians want this, because most of them do, but they all prioritize things, and many of them prioritize other things over this. Even where we know the connection between, let's say, poorly accommodated dyslexia and crime, poorly accommodated dyslexia and self-harm or suicide. Even where we know this, other things tend to be prioritized more. So it's a really difficult problem.
Well, so what then would you advise that we do now differently? Now that we're pushing this conference, we're pushing parents to hear it. We're telling teachers that it's not about what you learned in school. It's like life is presenting different things now. So you need to revise your notes. You need to come at the kids differently. How do you think that we can channel this conversation or this communication even with our government so that we have a quicker response?
So there are three very simple things we can do. The first thing is, as Michelle and Fatty were talking about, one of the things we do often is we punish kids for getting things wrong. Actually, where we start to grade kids on the input they have into work, rather than the output that they get from the work. So are they engaged with it? Do they want to try it? Do they put some time and effort into it? If we grade them on that, their results go up. This is really interesting and it's really clear. So that's one thing we can do. Another thing we can do is just alter slightly the language we use about dyslexia, stopping talking about it as it's a disorder or a disability, and start talking about it as a difference. And then on a slightly larger level, I do think universal screening in schools is a really, really good idea, and teacher training for all teachers is mandatory.
Right. You wanted to add to that?
Yeah, Dr. Martin kind of said what I was going to say. That I think it starts with the teacher training as well. If the teachers are trained in a different way to have that understanding, and they need to be trained to kind of identify these things, and it kind of eliminates part of the problem at the much early on. And also Dr. Martin kind of answered for me.
For you. That's great. So, Fatty, take me through Africa Dyslexia Conference 2025. The theme is Shifting Minds, Inspiring Action. What do you hope to achieve at the end of this conference?
Just as the title says, Shifting Minds, we want to change the mindset of Ghanaians. Parents, everyone. the person on the streets, we want that, because one of the difficulties, even saying the word dyslexia is a challenge for some people.
Yeah, it's such a huge word.
Right? So we want it, even you meet someone, the taxi driver, you can have a dyslexia or learning difficulties conversation with him. So this is our long-term goal. But with this conference, we're looking to gather all people, the change makers, who have the ability to make the inputs in the policies that we make in Ghana. Because sometimes we say in Ghana we're good at making policies, but when it comes to the implementation,
is a big
we
issue.
we can have amazing, we are good at that, but implementing it becomes the issue. And as Dr. Martin said, inclusion often is an afterthought. When everything else has been prioritized, then, okay, let's push inclusion. But no, we want it to be at the top, because if that is achieved, everything else would fall in place. So that's where we have the ministers, and we'll be having workshops within to train teachers, parents, and as much as have the school principals come in, because they have the power to make sure the implementation happens after they've come for the training. And we have amazing workshops, and I know Michelle can add to that.
Yeah, she's a writer. So she's
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I'll be delivering a workshop, and it's targeted towards parents and carers. And obviously we do have a lot of training that's necessary for teachers and educators, but a lot of the things that can be done at home support what happens in school. So it's really important for parents to be more knowledgeable, so they know what to look for and they know what they can do. And sometimes it's very simple, practical strategies that can be done every single day that make and have a profound impact.
Great.
Yeah.
Right.
So you go to our website,
right.
Africa Dyslexia Organization.
All right.
Our social media platform, Facebook, Insta, we are everywhere, because we want to be loud. I feel like we've been quiet for a while, now we are out there. So if you want to register, reach out to our social media platform, Africa Dyslexia Organization, our website.
Right.
There's a phone number, 059-479-9620. If you need...
Can you say that again? Okay, I think that it's there. That's
Yes.
it.
Okay, so the number is there, and we will see you. So it's a 2-day conference.
Okay.
On the August 13th and then 14th.
All right.
So we need you there if you are passionate about making a change in Ghana and Africa at large. So,
Well, yeah, and the special guest of honor is Honorable Haruna Idrisu. That's our Minister for Education. So that means that it's going national now. It's a big issue. It goes beyond us, and you want to be there. You want to be there. Is there free entry?
We
or
wish
you find out when you...
we wish we could do it for free, but this brings back to the funding. So if the government has some money to spare, we welcome it. So for now, it's charged, but in future, if we get a lot of sponsors on board, then it's our hope.
Yeah.
And we could do it across all the regions in Ghana. So we need more funding and sponsorship. So yeah.
I think Dr. Martins would be doing that. I mean, because when you bring the pounds and all that, it's going to help. I'm going to take your last words, Dr. Martin, before you leave us. You know, talking about the conference and all that is going and all that we expect.
Oh.
Okay, so I was asking for your final words before we go.
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear the question. Please forgive me. I think the final words are positive, to be honest with you. I think the Africa Dyslexia Organization is doing amazing things. I think that Michelle and Fatih are phenomenal advocates. And this is an international effort now. And we see that as people join up internationally, transnationally, we see that we can achieve wonders. So my final message is one of positivity. It's that the more we do this, the more we get the message out. And the more we get the message out, the more we help the kids.
Wow, that's beautiful. The more we do this, get the message out there, then we can help the kids. How often do you go to a regular Ghanaian classroom to meet these children?
Not often, not as often as I should.
Right?
Yeah. But I think going into the classroom and seeing the realities actually kind of motivates you to do more. Yeah.
I totally agree. We had a conversation this morning about, drug abuse. It is such a big thing. I was just thinking that could it be that this would be, the story of some people who feel like, okay, there's no inclusion, we're treated a certain way, we want to go the other way, you know. So we want to probably sort ourselves out by taking in these drugs and all of that. So that means that everybody, even if you don't get to go to the classroom, you know that there's a learning disability, you want to push for, okay, what is this? Take a minute to learn about it, because you know it's real. It's an existential issue for a child on the street that you might not know about, right? So you want to be a part of this process. You might not be a parent right now, but probably you know somebody whose child is like, okay, I'm not getting it the way you're teaching it. So let's look at it a different way. That's how I want you to, as you're watching right now, I know that you know A, B, or C children who probably are not following the regulars. That means that you need to be a part of this conversation. I'm preaching now. Right? I'm beginning to preach real quick.
Yeah.
But Fati, tell me, between the last time that you came and all that, we started to talk about, you know, giving care to these children. We hear the complaints sometimes about money. So people term it to be rich people's problem. You hear that?
Oh, yeah.
How does that go for you?
So people think, like we said, dyslexia is a rich people's problem, because why would you tell me my kid's not working harder? There's a reason for that. It's like we're trying to find an excuse, but no. And back to the drug issue you just mentioned. So research has actually shown that about 40 to 60% of people in prison have some form of undiagnosed learning difficulties. Globally. Yeah. And this is due to a pattern called the school to prison pipeline, where kids are in school, but the school is not able to accommodate their needs. So what happened? They are likely to drop out of school. When they drop out of school, tell me, where do they go? Out on the streets. So children with learning difficulty have 60% likelihood of ending up in prison. And that's their reality globally, not just Ghana. If we go to Nsawam right now and do a screening, you would be shocked. And I hope the governments would let us do that if we are able. And you would see.
Holistic education is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's everything should be kind of founded on that, you know, the well-being of the children is the start. And when we have that start where everyone, despite their learning differences, I try to use the language of differences instead of difficulties. Dr. Martin mentioned like slight changes in the language that we use. And when we do that, it kind of reframes the mindset that people have towards learning differences. And I mean, all it is that we have a diverse way of learning things. Everyone has a different way of grasping different pieces of information and absorbing and retaining their learning. And once we have that, and we have that understanding, then the children can flourish when we have that basic understanding amongst everybody. So you know, the parents know, the teachers know, it's just a general understanding that we know and believe, and we don't think, oh, this child is lazy or this child just isn't intelligent. Actually, we look at it differently, then, you know, everyone can be considered, and then we can kind of give every single different learner what they need.
And not to be all negative about praising and all that.
No, I mean, because also really huge.
But it is a massive percentage.
But the other side of it is also the similar percentage says of self-made billionaires, millionaires are also people with dyslexia and others. So whichever direction the person goes is based on the support the person gets.
Exactly.
If you would end up in prison or being okay in life, it depends on the support you get.
Because a lot of the time we don't see how brilliant, you know, a mind that has ADHD or dyslexia or whatever is, and the way that they think is different. That's why the learning is different. But actually they are probably capable of so much more when they're given the right tools for success.
Wow. This is really big. I mean, because then I'm thinking, what have I ever done to contribute to somebody going on the street?
Exactly.
Right? So now we're learning that dyslexia is also, and other learning, is it disability? No, difficulties. Differences are contributing factors to people in prison
Yes.
and people on the streets doing drugs and all of that, and you don't want that. And the thing is, we're so quick to judge, so quick to say, okay, you can't have all the goodies that you should be having, when in fact we are the ones stifling the joy out of these kids.
And we're so judgmental, you know? Like, we judge without offering support. So before you say, oh, you're lazy, you're this, what have you done to support the child?
Such a person.
You know, nothing.
Well, it starts from now, okay? It starts from me, it starts from you. If you have access to a Sunday school, okay, because probably you might not go to school or something like that, but in your Sunday school, take a minute. Go there if you're the head pastor. Check how the kids are relating to the other kids. Let's see how we can help, because you can use your own office. They say right in the corner where you are. So wherever you are, you have the chance to make someone's life better. Just so we can take these people off the chats of, okay, they are not good, but just so they feel loved and they feel included in all of these things. I feel like I could apologize to lots of people on the street now doing drugs and all of that, because red means stop, and all these conversations need to be had, right? The National Youth Employment and all of that, they're having these conversations about how to take these youth from the street. But then what probably we might not be looking at is what took them there. Why they go there, so that we can deal with the roots. The axe must be laid to the root. Well, my ladies, lesson well learned. We're going to go for the Dyslexia Conference. We're going to learn how to go about these things. You want to get on their website, is
africadyslexia.org,
and then you want to learn about the conference that's coming up, and you want to be a part of it. And if you want more questions, it's My Dominion TV. You can get there, ask all the questions. We're sure to get you all the answers. Thank you very much, my ladies.
Thank you.
Fati and Michelle, right? I don't want to stay the Sakande. Yeah, but thank you so much. And this will draw the curtains for today. You should be expecting 1 million strong at 12, where we're going to be praying. It's an initiative of the Archbishop. It's helped a lot of people. You want to be a part of it. Today, it's going to be with Bishop Franklin Nyako. And the prayer focus is judgment against unrelenting enemies. Oh, okay. I don't want to preach. I would have just connected the both conversations. But there it is. We want to be a part of it. And also join us on our socials and enjoy every program of Dominion TV. My name is Precious Biadola. See you tomorrow.